Positioning in Overwatch 2 has definitely been a very tricky mechanism to control and handle, and a lot of people have been struggling with this, so I decided to make a whole guide dedicated to this, and we're going to be doing this in a very effective manner as I talk about every single role, to that being tank, DPS, or support, and where do you want to position throughout the different pace of the fights, right? So you're going to have full-on team fights, you're going to have single out duo versus duo if your team is not fully there. So we're going to be going into great detail to help you guys improve. As always, if you guys haven't done so already and you guys are new to the channel, make sure you guys do subscribe. I have been dishing out all these Overwatch guides for you guys, ranging from hero counters to guides on DPS, tanks, and supports to help you guys improve your game and rank up as quickly as possible. So once again, make sure you guys do subscribe. Check out my other guides as well. Let's get straight into it. So we're going to be doing this as we spectate some of the best teams in the world. We got the Houston Outlaws versus the Dallas Fuels. Now, both teams have actually made it to the grand final, so they definitely have a lot to bring to the table, and we can definitely learn a lot from their positioning, right? So the first thing we're going to be going over is the DPS. As we see here, Sojourn is being absolutely abused. The thing about DPS and positioning is that it is very difficult to tackle right on, right? You kind of have to break it hero by hero. So for today's video, we're going to be going over your very typical hit scans, right? So that being Cassidy, Sojourn, Ashe, etc., right? Now, once again, even though those other heroes aren't being played right now, and you're basically just seeing a Sojourn abuse all across the map in these Overwatch League finals and semifinals, it is mainly very similar between the heroes across the spectrum. First thing you're going to want to notice is that you want to pick a hero when it comes to positioning that is very agile and can have a lot of mobility and dive mechanism and tactics, right? And I talked about this previously in my previous video, so definitely do check that one out. All right, so what you're going to want to do here in terms of positioning is you want to increase your game sense to an absolute maximum as a DPS, right? There's a lot of things you can get away with positioning wise as a tank. If you're in the back line or if you're in the front line, it's not really that bad. You won't be punished that bad. But when it comes to being a DPS, you have to be in the right position at all times, right? So that's why I'm starting with this role, and it is probably the hardest one to tackle. So as a Sojourn, you want to be in the mid-range, and I talked about this plenty of times, and a lot of people do definitely miss this one, right? You definitely want to be in the mid-range, meaning you want to be between your support and your tank, right? The reason I say this is because what ends up happening, a lot of people would be behind their supports, right, as a Sojourn, because you definitely can, right? Once again, a Sojourn can play mid-range, or a Sojourn can also play long range, right? But obviously mid-range would allow you to hit your rail shot a lot easier and you would have better accuracy. The reason you want to be in front of your support and behind your tank is a lot of times you're going to be focused pretty hard as a DPS, right? Especially if you're popping off as a Sojourn, and you'll see this in a lot of these games where a Sojourn is the primary focus, the one getting dived, right? Imagine if your Kijugo or your Lucio or Mercy, even though we're not seeing her played at this top tier level, turns around to heal that DPS who just got dove, and the tank does not have those heals in place, right? You always want your support to be in the ultimate backline, right? And the reason I say this is because a lot of people, what they end up doing is they get pressures as DPS. So what they'll do is they'll dive right back behind their support. The support will turn around to heal that DPS, and next thing you know, the tank is basically being dove on and gets absolutely melted, right? And the reason playing support is very difficult is because you have to heal the tank and the DPS, and not just that, you also have to heal your fellow support, right? There's two supports as you are playing most of these competitive games for sure. So what you're going to want to do here as a support is you want to be very careful with how you are positioning in terms of your tank, right? You kind of want to always be around your tank and next to your tank. The reason I say that is because a DPS, although they can beam down enemy targets very quick, a tank can actually, believe it or not, provide more protection for the support, right? So you always want to be very close to your tank. You can also be in front of your tank. You don't always have to be behind your tank. And I think that's where a lot of people get it wrong. What a lot of people struggle with here is that they have this, you know, stuck in stone, written in stone, basically crafted mentality that a support always has to be behind the tank. That is not the case, right? Sometimes your tank might have to dive an enemy target that is behind you. As long as you are close to your tank, you should be safe, right? Let's take Zarya for example, or Winston. A lot of these heroes you guys are seeing being played, right? If you're next to your tank and you're getting pressure to support, that tank will come, bubble you, jump on the target, push them back, and basically help you out, right? Something a DPS cannot really get done. So you definitely want to be as close to your tank as possible just so they can provide you with that protection. Now when it comes to the actual positioning on the map, right? So let's say we have front line, center, and backline, right? As we established, right, front line, you're basically gonna have your tanks, and we're gonna go over that in a little bit, right? And then you're gonna have your center and backline. You're gonna have a lot of DPS, especially a DPS like Sojourn or Widow. They're gonna be in the backline. So in the center, there you are the support, right? Now, once again, that is the position you want to hold. And I know this sounds very cliche. A lot of people are gonna tell me, well, obviously you're gonna be in the center as a support. The reason I say this is because you have to pay attention to how your teammates are moving around the map, right? For example, your tank might dive an enemy that is behind you, and then your DPS might jump up front to jump on the tank or jump on the support, right? So now you're gonna have the roles mixed up on you. You're gonna have your tank behind you, your DPS in front of you, and you're gonna have to keep track of who to heal, right? So once again, that is why you want to be very careful with your support positioning, and every single fight usually ends or starts with the support being out of position, right? For example, you'll notice that a support has so much monumental value in any battle, right? For example, you have 2 DPS primarily, right? A lot of these compositions, the people are running Reaper for that close range burst lifesteal damage, and they're running Sojourn for those quick snipes, those crisp, right, top tier mechanical skills. So once again, I am thinking of doing a mechanical skill improvement, guys. So if you guys want to see that, be sure to stick around and subscribe for that for sure, right? So once again, you're noticing these top tier players, right, pick out these supports that are out of position. By the way, these are happening by accidents, right? Not paying attention, losing your game sense. So definitely be on the lookout for that as a support. And I highly suggest you guys go in, practice some rounds, and make sure you guys do have all that in lock, because it is very hard to master. And last but not least, we're going to be covering the tank position or role, right? Now, this is the hardest one to be able to do and master properly, right? When it comes to positioning and skill ceiling and how much you can actually improve, tanks are probably the hardest ones, right? Because they dictate the entire pace of the fight. And I cannot stress this point enough, right? Every single fight is dictated by how the tank dives in, how they're able to control those DPS. And believe it or not, you can actually take out a DPS as a tank, right? A lot of people have this notion stuck in their mind that a tank is there to soak up damage and just be a sponge and protect the healers and DPS, but you can actually kill a lot of DPS, right? And you notice these top tier players, right, that are playing in the Overwatch League right now, finals and grand finals. What they're doing is they're noticing the DPS that is out of position, that is low, not getting healed once again because they are out of position, and they're diving at DPS and they are absolutely eliminating them, right? So a tank can definitely dish out some quick damage. Now, once again, Winston is not really the perfect example for damage. Orisa might be the perfect example, and she can actually fully take out a DPS that has full HP if they're out of position, not getting healed or not getting CC'd properly, right? And the last thing you definitely want to pay attention for as a tank is your ults, right? Different tanks have different ults, obviously, just like every other hero, right? But we're going to be focusing on Winston, and we're going to be focusing on Zarya, right? Both those heroes have ults that can either change the pace of the game, that would be in Winston's example, and they can absolutely stall the payload as long as their team can make it there back in time. And you have Zarya that can absolutely CC the life out of your team with her Grav ult, right? And just absolutely annihilate you in combo with other ults. You want to be very careful with how you position your ults, right? Imagine if you're a Zarya and you throw in your Grav and it catches no one. You honestly just have to uninstall the game at that point, right? That is very embarrassing. Versus, for example, a Sojourn that misses all her rail shots. When she uses that, this ends now, right? We're all very familiar with that, with these Overwatch League tournament games, right? And it's been pretty much played every single round. So once again, yeah, you do have to be very careful with your positioning of an ult as a tank. And I think that is very monumental, more than a DPS or a healer, just because tanks generally have crowd control type or CC or any sort of utility like ults, right? They help you dive in, they grant you that mobility factor in every fight, and they enable you actually in many fights, right? So a tank's ult is very pressured by how they position. So that's one thing you definitely want to pay attention to. And yeah, that's pretty much going to wrap up positioning. Once again, just keep in mind that don't play how everyone else plays, right? Don't think that the healer can never be in the front line, and don't be all the way in the back line if you're DPS. Make sure that you are in line of sight between the tank and your healer, just so you can get healed at all times. Sometimes people die without even their healer support knowing they're about to die. So definitely keep a lookout for that. And I hope you guys enjoyed these tips and tricks to help you improve your Overwatch game. And I hope you guys actually join the Overwatch League later and just get better in the game and continue improving. So once again, if you guys enjoyed this guide, you definitely want to be checking out my other guides, as I'll continue to dish out these daily for you guys. I've been on a 5 video daily streak, so once again, do me a favor and make sure you guys smash that subscribe button so I can keep these content pushing for you guys. Have a great one and enjoy Overwatch.